the recording. Welcome everybody. This is today's our lesson number 5 already. Welcome. Welcome. How was so assignment 1 was due earlier today. How was assignment number 1 for everyone? Let me ask in the chat. I'm really looking forward. Let me see if I can see how many submissions we had yet or anything like that. Oh, okay. I'm really looking forward to seeing everyone's submissions. It looks like we don't have too many submissions, actually. About 27 out of 100 students. Okay, well, for the 27 students that did submit, there is 17 students that opened. Okay, 27 students that completed it. Great job. We will give you some feedback, and assignments are really important in this class because you'll be able to this is where you actually get to really write a lot of things from scratch, and you get a real feedback from one of our LAs. They review your assignment carefully and they give you very specific feedback. And the best way to improve in this class is to get a lot of feedback. So, yes, definitely. If this is your first time writing code, it's not an easy assignment. It can be a little challenging. It can be challenging, but it's okay as long as you try it and then ask questions. And um, what's nice about this class is that after you submit the assignment, after you get some feedback, you are able to resubmit. You're able to submit again to fix your mistakes. So you do have some more opportunity. You have a lot of opportunity for changing and fixing and working on things. So yeah, welcome everyone. Welcome. Welcome everyone. Hello. Hi. Hey Masuda. Hello. Hello Azra. Hello Arazo. Hello Yusra. Hello Sabako. Welcome. Welcome everyone. Welcome. Okay, let us get started with if you need a little bit time, I can give you another couple more days to complete assignment 1. If you need a little more time to do it, please still submit it anyway. Yeah, because it's better we'll still look at it. So please do complete your assignment number 1. Yeah. Okay, let's jump in to today's stuff. All right, let's jump into today's stuff. Today we're going to be talking, now that you got an understanding of some basic CSS, you're learning about all these semantic tags. Today we're going to do a little bit more CSS, and then we're going to talk about a new topic called forms, right? Forms. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to stop my video, share my screen here. Okay. And then yeah, so you just completed assignment number one, or if you're still working on it, please work on it and try to complete it as soon as possible. So you finish assignment number one. Today we're going to be to lesson number five. We're going to be talking about inline and block elements and something called forms. Here's my, all right. And then, sorry, give me a second here. Hello, welcome, welcome. All right, and then let's go ahead and just jump into code. So there's some code I'm gonna give you today. We're gonna work on like this thing, we're gonna talk about display.html and things like that. So if we can please, I have some code already here for you. So if you can go ahead and fork this. Let me go ahead and um actually, you know what? Um oh yeah, let's go ahead and fork this here. I'm gonna put this in the chat. Go to this workspace and copy. Start in code. Ready? I'm gonna fork this. So for those of you that can follow along, can code along with me, please go ahead and try to fork this. Go to this link and click on fork here, or you can also go to Edstem and go to lessons. Go to lessons. If you go to lesson number 5 over here, lesson number 5 over here, and then you click on lesson 5 slides and code, you can see the starter code right over here. You can click on this as well. If you're online with your phone and you can't follow along with me, you can just watch. Okay. All right, gonna give you one more second to fork the workspace. Remember, the fork icon is right over here. This is where the fork is. So you can click on that, and then I was gonna ask if you want a fork, and then it'll make a copy of everything here. And this is what we're gonna talk about right now. I'm gonna go do the same. I'm gonna go ahead and fork this. I'm gonna go ahead and fork this, fork, and then this is lesson number 5. You can actually just call it lesson number 5 if you want. You don't have to call it starter. And then let's go ahead, make sure this display dot, we're gonna talk about this HTML file first, display.html. Let's go ahead and open it into my display here. To the little, click on the globe icon so we can see it. Okay. All right, then let's dive in here. So we've been learning about, we just started talking about CSS. We talked about how and CSS is very powerful. We can create these rules. This is one rule, this is another rule, this is another CSS rule. And we can select any tag we want, the body tag, the H1 tag, the image tag, whatever tag we want, and we could change change its properties. We could change its background color, width, color, text color, like text align. There's a lot of things we can change. And then we also talked about how by default, this is important. By default, elements also just come with some certain properties. For example, like this is our H1 tag, right? Our H1 tag comes with like a very bold, it's very bold. The font size is very large. It actually comes with some margin on top and bottom as well. That's like a default property of an H1 tag. P tag also comes with like some this P tag has all these pink background colors. They also by default come with like margins, and they create like a new line. So every element kind of comes with their own some default properties, some default some default properties. One kind of important thing to note, and this is something you might start noticing more and more as you write more code, there's a property called display, that's what's called display here, that controls, if you've ever wondered, how come like paragraph, when I create a new paragraph, it goes to the next line, right? And how come like anchor links like this, anchor links, they're all in just one line, like they stay in line within my text. And even images, this is my image right here. I have just 3 image, I think these are 3 image tags. By default, if the image is right now, it's kind of small, so if they're small enough, they all go next to each other. They're all going next to each other. So some elements, some tags, by default, they all go next to each other like this, left to right. Some element or links, they all go left to right. Or some elements, whenever you make a new one, it goes to the next line. So I created H1 tag, right? H1 tag, and then the P tag right after it goes to the next line. It goes to the line below it. Even this is controlled by CSS. So CSS has a property named display that controls if an element is going to stay in line or it's going to go to like the next line. Interesting, right? So I want to show you that. So let's look at images, for example. By default, images all like to go next to each other. That's the default behavior. But if I wanted to go to the next line, if I want the image to take up the whole space, and so the next image goes to the next line, we can have a property called display block, right? Display block. And just, wow, look at what just happened. My image now takes up kind of all this space here, and then it goes to the next line, right? Display block. By default, it was display inline. Inline just means everything stays in one row. Okay, so let me put this in the comments so that we can see this better. By the way, this is how you write comments in CSS. It's / like this. Let me write a comment like this. By default, images have display. Okay, so that's the default. That's why that's why when you're writing code, you're gonna see like, oh, like some elements go by default, they just stay in the same line, some others don't. This is why this is okay. So, and same thing with even anchor links. Notice how like my paragraph, right? Every time I create a new paragraph, this is the first paragraph, and then the next paragraph goes right below it, right? And like it goes to the next line, right? So paragraphs have a display block by default as well. So but paragraphs, let me put this in the comment as well. By default, paragraph have their display property set to block. Okay. This means the element takes up. Okay, so by default, paragraphs have a display block. That is why it is like just takes up this whole space. And block elements, so we call these like block elements. Block elements take up the entire width of the browser. And that's why it just takes up the entire space. So by default, you can they're all stacked, they stack on top of each other. But I can even see, this is very powerful. This is default, these are default properties. But I can always say, you know what, I want my paragraph to be in line or something. If I do display inline, notice now all my paragraphs are in line. There's no like break in between them at all. They're all just a piece of text, for example. So you can change these to display block, display inline. I just want to show you that because definitely when you're writing code, you're gonna be like, why is some of them like, you know, why do some of them do that? Some of them don't. Anchor link is another example. Anchor link, if I did display, if I did display block, what's gonna happen is now the anchor link is its own block instead of like it's inline. Mm -hmm. Yeah, so there you go. That is that's just a quick little, I just want to show you today. That is a quick little thing, the difference between in by default, again, all elements, all HTML tags, all HTML elements, they come with some default properties. One of them is one kind of key important one is a property called display. So this display here this display here determines if an element is in its own line like this, or so it takes up its own space, which is display block, or if it's like if by default they all go next to each other using display inline. Now here's a caveat though, even inline elements, like this is my width, right now my image width is 150, it's small enough so they all fit in one row, they all fit, that's why it's right now with 150. But if my images were like way too big, if they're like really big, and then even inline elements, they'll go to the next line. The image will still go to the next line. right? So do watch out for that, just because it's not, there's one small exception. If an image is way too big, if an element is way too big, it can't fit in the same row, then it'll by default, these are just default properties, they'll go to the next line. So there you go. So let me type in the chat. Let me type in the chat. This is kind of a weird concept here, but there's a lot of like hidden things in CSS that people miss, and then that's why sometimes your CSS like doesn't work and stuff. So I want to show you all these like little hidden details about CSS. So let me go and type in the chat. Recapping here. Typing in the chat here. Just a quick recap. Okay, just typing in the chat there. Any questions? Again, kind of a weird concept, but any questions? Just remember, by default, some elements, they like to go inline. They all like to go next to each other by default, kind of like my anchor link as well. And then by default, there's block elements that they like to take up the entire space of the row so that the next element goes to the next line. So there's block elements versus inline elements. Any questions? If not, let's jump to more new topic today. We're going to be talking about forms. All right, let's talk about forms. So we use forms everywhere. The most, even like Google, you've seen forms on the internet. Everything is like everything is a form. Even our Google search here, this is actually a form. Like when I type something in, like how HTML, like how to add image HTML or something, and I search what's happening, and I press enter to search. What's happening is I'm actually submitting this information, this form, to Google, and then Google gives me some results back. So, or even like YouTube, when we go to youtube.com, you see search, this is also a form. Anytime you see a search, it's a form. Whatever YouTube or HTML or something, I type enter, you're submitting a form to YouTube, and YouTube kind of gives us all the results about HTML. Even like shopping sites, Amazon as well, when you search, you're submitting a form. Everything is a form. When you check out, let me see if I have anything to check out. Here, let me say let's say I want to buy a let's say I want to buy a Funko Pop. Okay. And then I go to my cart, and then I start like proceed to checkout. I'm not gonna actually buy this, but it's uh, anytime you want to sign in, that's a form as well. Okay. So anytime you sign in, you put in your password, this is a form as well. It's a form. And then when I sign in, and then I select all add my information. And then, like even these radio buttons, if I have a, excuse me, if I have a promotion or something and I click apply, all this is a form. Essentially, these are all forms. And anytime you create an account, let's say I go to, I don't know, like Walmart.com or something. Walmart is a huge shopping, huge retail store in America. If you want to create an account, like I want to create an account, you've seen these before, sign in or create your account. This is also a form. Oh, I already have an account here. So what I'm trying to say here, Target is another big one. I want to show like an actual sign-in form. Create an account. There you go. You've seen these kind of stuff before. Even when you create an account on EdStem, or whenever you created an account on Free Code Camp. Anytime you create an account, you have to fill out your information, your name, your phone number, maybe your address, your password, all this stuff. This is a form, a typical form. So there's forms everywhere, and forms are so important, especially in the front end development, because that's how users mainly interact with you. There's no other this is the best way a user on your website gives you some information about them, some kind of information, some kind of data about them. So forms are really important. Forms are very critical to the internet. Without forms, the internet is just a brochure. It's just a very simple, websites are very simple, just informational. But once you add a form, things get very interesting, because now you can collect the user information. You can have them create accounts. You can have them sign in. You can give them, you can allow them to search for things and choose things they want specifically. So forms are very important. So today I'm going to talk to you about how to make a form like this, how to create a form. On Thursday, we're going to talk a little bit more about how to make your form look nice using CSS. We're not going to actually process the form, meaning we're going to make a form, but it's not going to really do anything. It's not going to actually save the information anywhere yet, because to do that, we need a backend, we need a little more technology. But today, I'm going to at least teach you how to create a form, some of the common elements in a form. And then on Thursday, we're going to continue the form. We're going to make the form look pretty. We're going to talk about how to style some of that. And then you'll have, after today's lesson, you're going to be assigned lab number 4, where you're going to do some more steps to practice those forms. And then we're going to have another assignment that's due next Tuesday. So every Tuesday, we're going to have some kind of assignment. So next Tuesday, your assignment will be to create a form that looks something like this, a survey kind of form. So this whole week, this week through today's this is week 3. This is week 3, all about forms. We're doing forms. A lot of practice on forms. You're gonna do a lab on form. We're gonna create an assignment with a form. Alrighty, so let's dive in. So I'm going to continue here in my lesson 5 workspace. If you want to create a new workspace, that's totally fine too. But please open up this. If it's closed, please open up the form.html on the side here. By the way, you could always close the side here by clicking on the little icon like this, and hide and show and hide. Here's my form. I'm going to click on the globe icon so we can see it. Okay, and let's start typing out. Let's start creating a form. And if you can follow along with me, that's the best way to learn. But if you aren't able to do that, if you're on your phone or something like that, you can also go ahead and just kind of watch me do it. But I do hope you do lab number 3 so that you can get some practice for your own. I'm going to type a quick recap in the chat. Forms are so important. All right, let's dive in. So to create a form, this is all going to be starting with HTML because you always need HTML to create a form or to make anything really. So let us go ahead and write out our HTML skeleton. Okay, HTML. As usual, we need the body tags. I'm gonna just type that out. Just practicing for fun here. We're gonna need a title here. Let's call this lesson 5 form. We're gonna add some CSS in here later. Oh, we need our meta char set UTF-8 thing here. There you go. There's no closing meta tag. And then some of you might have seen this when you run your HTML code in the validator. You might have seen like, oh, we need like a language here. This is good. This is not like required, but it is good to have to kind of tell the page, okay, we're using this HTML document. The language we're using is English, EN for short. Yeah. So just makes it gives the it's useful when later on you have to translate your web pages and you can select like which language it's using and things like that. So just having it is nice. Not required, but it's very nice to have. So let's put that there. And this is our HTML skeleton. All right, awesome. Just like we've done before, let's just add like a header, H1. So what we're gonna make today is I heard that in Afghanistan, people really like to drink tea. So let's create a tea order form. Right? Tea order form. So we're gonna create a form where the user is gonna give us the information, what kind of, they're gonna give us their name, what kind of tea they wanna drink, and then we're gonna submit that information, right? To make it fun, let's go and get a cute little emoji. Let's go get an emoji here. Let's get like a tea emoji. Yes, there's a tea emoji. I like that one. And let's put it here. Tea order form. And let's give some information like a paragraph tag, like please submit this form to order delicious tea. All right, something like that. So I have my header tag there. And then we're going to have like our main tag that's going to have the main, like our actual form and all that stuff, all that fun stuff. Right. Okay, so anytime you create a form, whether it's a full like sign up form or it's a search, it's like just a simple google.com, like it's a search form like this, any form ever, you need to first have a form tag, right? Form tag. Okay, form tag. Anytime you start making a form, you start with a form tag. It has an opening tag and a closing tag. And then let me put some enters here so you can see better. So I put a header, and in the main, I have a form tag. Okay, the form tag does have required attributes. There is a action attribute and there's a method attribute. But for now, I'm gonna leave it blank. Okay, we'll come back to this because this is useful when we're going to actually submit the form, which we're gonna do at the end. All right, let's go ahead and ask the user for their name, for example. Okay, so I'm just gonna type in name for now. Name. Okay, we got name. All right, and then to create this little box where the user can type their information, there is a tag called input tag. An input tag is one of those tags that does not have a closing tag like this. You can leave it alone like this. Some people like to do a little slash at the end just to show that it's the end of a tag here, right? Input. We're going to type, there's an attribute called type. This attribute is very important. Type. The default one is text. All right, so just by typing this input type text, I now have this area where I can write stuff in. Yay. So this input tag type with the type equals text created this input here, this area where the user can input, that was coming from, input their information. Okay. I'm just gonna keep typing here. What this input tag is very interesting because it's very important, because if I could do this input tag here, this type attribute is what's really important. If I just do type equals password, now I have the same input tag. I got the same, the little box where I could type stuff in. But now when I type it in, you see the little dot. That's because I have type equals password set. So the user knows that, oh, I'm typing stuff in, but mask it with the dots. So this input tag is used for most of our inputs here. And the only key thing that we need to change is type equals password. Pretty nice, right? And notice right now, my input tags, everything is going in one line. And that is actually because input tags are inline elements, like what we talked about. They all by default go in one line. They don't make line breaks. So later on, we're gonna have to create some line breaks for them. But for now, let's just leave it like this. So these input tags have a little more information that we need to add. Here's one. We're gonna type in name. Okay, name. Name is literally what it sounds like. We're gonna name this input. So what is this input going to be? I'm gonna call it like name, for example. All right. So this input is going to have it's gonna hold some information, the name information. This one's gonna have password information. So name input tags require this like name attribute as well. Names, just to kind of give it a name. And this information is used when we submit the form over. So right now, like visually, nothing's gonna really change, but there we go. Here's another useful one for especially text. This is not a required attribute. There's an attribute called placeholder, placeholder, placeholder. And if I type in like Nyan Kim or something, notice that this placeholder attribute, it created that gray, and inside my input tag, it added my name, Nyan Kim, in gray, right? And it's a placeholder. It kind of tells the user an example of what to write. And so if I write over it, start typing in, it's going to delete it. So placeholders are really nice because it kind of gives you a hint. It tells the user an example of what they can type in this form. Okay, any questions so far? So these input tags, they input tags give us the little box, the little inputs where users can type stuff in. And these attributes, input tags have a required attribute called name, type, and then also you could use like placeholder to add some information in here. We can also ask for email, for example, email. There's a type attribute email. Email. And the user can type their email in here as well. It just looks like another text box. Any questions so far? Let me type a quick recap in the chat. Recap. Yeah, great question. In the yeah, so that this box right here is the input tag, just like this. Yeah. And then we got a question about why do we repeat the name two times in one line? This name attribute here, this name attribute here, is simply saying what's the name of my input. I could It's because right now it's named, so I'm giving it name, but it could be anything technically. It could even be like XYZ or something. Name, the actual value of the name doesn't quite matter. We're just trying to name what this attribute is. It's kind of like, it kind of reminds you of like an ID. It's kind of like an ID attribute where you're just kind of giving it a name, giving this element some kind of a name, an identifier, so that we can use later. Yeah. And just to so this input tag here, by simply me adding this input tag, it created the box that allows the users to type. And this type here is very important. When I change a text type password, now when I type, the little dots come up because of type equals password. Okay. Yeah, other questions. Yeah. So anytime you want to create a form, make a form tag. And then we got the input and elements. Motahara's great question. She asked, can we use display here to have the boxes in separate lines? Yes, definitely. That's what we're actually gonna do that on Thursday when we start styling the elements. All right, here's another tag I introduce you to. So I kind of introduced you to input tags. Now I gotta introduce you to another tag that goes with input tags. We gotta talk about a tag called label, right? Label. It looks like this, label. All right, so I put the label tag around the word name. So name is what the user kind of sees. Okay, This is a name, and right here, and then this tag right here is my input tag, right? So these are two separate elements in as far as the computer sees. So I need to put a label tag to kind of tell the browser, tell the computer, all right, these two items are related to each other. This input tag is a label for this input tag is for name, for example. So I got label right over here, and I got input tag right next to each other. These two are related to each other. Name, that's the text, and then input is the place where the user types stuff in. Okay, we're gonna do one more thing to actually tie these things together. There is an attribute called for attribute, label for. So we need to tell our label, okay, I have a label here, I have a piece of text. This is associated to which input tag? It's going to be this one right over here. So I need to kind of link them. I need to link them together. And to link them together, I need one more attribute. This input tag is getting really long, but I need another attribute called ID, right? ID. Oh man, we have an ID and a name, and oh my gosh, there's so many attributes here. Right, we're gonna I was call it name input or something. Right? Name input. All right, so my label tag, man, we have so many indentations. Kind of actually, maybe I can hide this. There you go. All right, my label tag is around the word, like the text name. And then I have this input tag right next to it. And this for attribute and the ID attribute have the same, they're exactly the same, so that the browser knows that this label, now when I click it, notice how like the my name input is highlighting. So I click away, I click on name. There we go. We have our the input box is highlighted. So now the browser knows, oh, okay, this label here, this label tag with the word name in it, with a text name in it, is now associated with this input tag. They are linked together. So right now, if I click on password, for example, nothing happens. The browser doesn't know these two are linked together. But when I click on name, the browser knows that these two are linked together. They're related. So it's the same thing for password, same thing for password. Let's do label. Let's put label around my password. Right? We're gonna do the same thing for and give it the name. You could call it really whatever you want. I'm just gonna call it like password input or something. Oh man, it's so long. Okay, maybe it's called PW input, and I'm gonna add an ID. Don't forget to put all the spaces in between your attributes. ID PW input. Right? And now when I click on password, the little highlight shows up. These are two linked together. So very important. There's a lot of tags that come up in forms, but they all do make sense when you really break it down. It kind of looks gross because there's so much code in there, but it makes sense. There's logic to this. I got a label tag around the word password and got a for attribute that links with the ID here. Okay, same thing with email. That's the email. And there we go. Now they're all linked together. Very nice. Yeah, sure, Zara. She asked, can you say a little bit more about label? There's not much to it. Label tag usually when you have a form, usually actually you don't always do, but sometimes you want to look, you want to add some information about what you want the user to type in. Like usually some kind of text that goes there's usually some kind of text that goes with the input tag so that you could tell the user like what they're typing basically. So if you do have a piece of text like that, then you want to put a label tag around it just to make it really obvious to the browser. Okay, this is a label. Like this is a label for my input. It's not a paragraph. It's not like a H1 tag. It's actually meaningful. It's a label for one of my input tags. So I think, yeah, like this is a label too, technically, like email address, like anytime you see some text that explains what something is, that's usually like a label tag here, first name, last name. They added some fancy stuff here, actually. But yeah. So let me recap in the in the chat here. Recap here is that a yeah. So that's label and form for us so far. You know what? I think actually now that it's getting kind of actually, yeah. Let's keep going. So we have password, we got email. Now let's get a little bit more interesting. What about like those like check boxes or like radio buttons like we saw, or like yeah, like a checkbox like this, or like radio buttons where you can choose one choice. That is also going to be more, it's going to be more input tags here. Let's go ahead and give us another label. Let's actually now add some type of tea in here. We can ask the user, like, what type of tea would you like to order? Right? What kind of type of tea would you like to order? And to create one of those, what we call these radio buttons, but those like circle buttons, it's going to be the same input tag, input type, input tag. But in this case, instead of doing the text, we're going to use a type attribute. We're going to call it like radio. Radio. Oh, take a look at that. So when I do input type radio, right? Radio, not and earlier we did what did we do? We did type equals text. We did type equals password. This time I do type equals radio, right? Type equals radio. We get this nice little circle button. So I want to ask you in the chat, what are some type of teas you enjoy? So we can add this to our forum. Let's see. So let's let the user choose one of like a few teas. Green, okay, green tea. So let's type in like green tea. All right, there we go. So now we got a button for green tea. Ooh, lemon tea, ginger tea. All right, let's keep typing some in. Another radio, lemon tea. Amazing. Let's get a lot of people like green tea, ginger tea. Awesome. Okay. So anytime you want a radio button, you want like a, radio button like this, you're going to do input type equals radio. Ooh, black tea sounds amazing as well. Now we got to make sure these radio buttons are tied to there's a lot of little things we got to do. We need to tie it up to our text here. So I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and add a label called green tea. And all right, so radio, green tea. I'm going to give it a ID attribute. Call it like green tea for green tea. All right, so I got the radio button. I have the radio button here. And then I have my green tea label right below it. All right, awesome. Let's do the same thing. Forget all of your labels. So I'm like adding the label for each of my radio buttons I just created. Okay, so green tea. So so this is what I have right now. So I have a label for just a general label for type of tea. This label here doesn't really actually link to any of my other elements. It's just a general like type of tea. And then I have input ID green tea. There you go. And I have a label, green tea, lemon tea, label for green tea, or not, sorry, lemon tea. And what's nice about adding these IDs and I know it's a lot of code, but it's very useful now when I click on green tea, like the word green tea, the radio button gets chosen because now they're linked together. Like, so if I click on ginger tea right now, it does not have an ID or 4 right now. Like nothing happens. But if I click on lemon tea, for example, like the button changes here. So let's go out. So these labels, it's a little tedious work. I gotta tell you, when you're making forms can be pretty tedious, but very important. Very important. All right. Okay, cool. Here's a problem though. Right now, notice how I clicked on everything. Right now, like everything's kind of clickable right now. So with these radio buttons only one, we should only be able to choose one of them. Right now I'm like choosing like all of them right now. So how do I do that? There's one more, this is where actually the name attribute is very useful. In my input tag, an attribute I forgot is name attribute. Name attribute. Don't forget, all of your input tags must have a name attribute. So we need to use the same name for all of these three. So let's just call it T, for example. Here we go. Name equals T. Name equals T. All right. So all my my radio inputs, they all have the same name T now. They all have the same name. So now once they have the same name, now I could choose only one or the other. There we go. I can only choose one. I can't choose multiple of them. So the circle buttons are for only choosing one. Choosing one. Yes, Motahara, yes. If their name is the same, we can just choose one. Yep, exactly. Yeah. So their name has to be the same. Name T, name T, name T. Yeah. So for radio buttons, for input tags, actually there's another so many attributes. Sorry guys, there's so many attributes when it comes to forms, but they're at least they make sense. There's a lot of them, but they make sense. You need to have another attribute called value actually for these. Um and you need, the value is a little more is describing what this input tag is going to hold. So in my other input tags, the user is gonna type something, so we don't really care. But for these radio buttons, even though the user knows what they're selecting, okay, they know like, oh, when I select this, it's green tea, right? But the browser has no idea what this input tag is. So we have to give it a value of green tea. Like we need to tell the browser specifically, okay, this circle thing, that's green tea, right? This radio button, that's green tea. This circle button, this radio button, we need, the value is going to be lemon tea. You know, and this one is going to be ginger tea. So we also need a value attribute for my radio buttons as well. Yeah, it looks complicated, but it's really we but really it's just a lot of the same code over and over again. You will, Yeah, Alder, I agree with you. When I first learned forms, so it's just like a lot of it's just a lot of text, right? Just like, oh my gosh, it's like ID, like type, like where are all these attributes like coming from? But if you really look at it, it's we're using the same thing over and over and over again. We're using the input tag, ID for green, like right, label tag for like input tag, like we're using the same thing over and over and over and over again. So that's why in your lab you're going to practice more, and then in your assignment, you're going to practice more. You're going to get a lot of practice with this. Okay, let me show you a couple more. So we have we have these radio buttons. We have a radio button. Awesome. These where you could choose one of them, one option. But what about our check boxes, like checkbox like this, like a checkbox where you could choose more than one. So let's talk about text boxes. Let's keep scrolling here. So we got I'm gonna do another label and call it like, let's see, what would you like to add to the T? Some people like to add to their T, right? And right now, by the way, our form looks so ugly because everything is just in line, everything is in one line, but we will fix this. We will fix this on Thursday. For now, we're just learning all the many tags that come out a for forms. What would you like to add to the T? What would you like to add to the T? Let's add a checkbox. So add a checkbox. We're going to do another input tag again, yet again, another input tag. And we're going to do checkbox, just like that. Checkbox. And then voila, you get a checkbox. Like check. By default, like we have little check marks, some colors on it. So what we'd like to add to the T, I'm just going to go ahead and type it in. I'm going to do label again, label yet again. Honey, let's say I want to add some honey to my tea. There you go. We're going to do the same thing where we have the for attribute. So many, right? ID is honey. Okay, this input tag is also going to have a name called maybe let's call this like add choice or something. Add choice. Okay, honey, right? And then like a value, honey. Okay, so there you go. That's honey. Now, and then because I have the label link, if I click on the word honey, it's gonna check it as well. Let's do that again. Let's do another one. Maybe we want to add some sugar. Let's call it checkbox. So ID and sugar needs to match. That's good. Type equals checkbox. We got name equals add choice. Value is sugar. There we go. So now we got checkboxes as well. So the only difference between a checkbox and a radio button is a checkbox. You can select multiple. You can select multiple. And the type is checkbox. So as you can see, what we just did for in the radio and what we did for the checkbox is very similar. We have the ID attribute, right? Both of them have ID attribute. They both have type attribute. They both have name attribute and value attribute. All the attributes are the same. The only really difference is the value. Like this can be a checkbox versus radio. Any questions so far? Yeah, that's does not look very pretty because everything's in one line, but uh, yeah, great question. Arezzo asks, what value does it mean here? Uh, a job. Yeah. Why do we do value, right? Why do we do value? Yeah, why do we have value? Like we have so many, like we have type, we got name. Why do we do value? So value is to let's look at honey, for example. So to a user, we know that when I click on this check box, I know that I'm selecting honey because I can see, like I can visually see it. But to a computer, they don't know what checkbox you just selected. They know that it's like linked to honey or something, but like they don't really know what you just check mark. So what value tells it is later when the form is actually submitted, the program actually takes this information and stores it into whatever. So by adding value, it's telling the form that the user selected this value. So when they select the sugar, they selected sugar, for example. Okay. Um, yeah. All right. So yes, the slide, I didn't go over the slides, but sometimes the slides are kind of helpful for forms, like to kind of look at it in general, like form tag and like so text field creates, the text input type text gives us a text field, email gives us an email, radio button gives us the radio, like right. The slides can be a little helpful there, check boxes, so on and so forth. So if you want to review that, you can definitely review our code. There's a lot. I know there's a lot of tags in here, a lot of code in here, but essentially we're writing the same thing over and over again, and you'll get it with more practice. We're gonna continue. Oh, sorry, I want to scroll up from the beginning. Okay, here's the top of my code. All right, we're gonna continue with forms. Forms of is there's just a lot of attributes and stuff with forms. We're gonna continue with forms on Thursday, but this hopefully this is like a good intro to help you some practice with forms. Please do, we do have a new lab number 4. Lab number 4, if you go to do steps 33 to 69, we're gonna do more steps in here. It's gonna start teaching you about forms. So you can practice forms from line 33 all the way to 69. So we're gonna go into breakout rooms now. And we're gonna go into breakout rooms now. And please work on lab number 4. Try lab number 4 because this is how you're gonna practice forms. If you have any questions about form, please ask. This you can take a look at this code, and they can help, the LAs can help you with any line of code. Or you can just be like, hey, why do you have, type equals text on line number 18? Or why do you have 4 on line number 20? Like, that's a great question. So you could always refer to my code to ask questions as well. Okay, and let me get our breakout rooms ready. And oh, okay, we got more people joining right now. Let me go ahead and pause the recording. Let me start the recording. Hello again, everybody. Um, yeah, so the assignment, if you submitted it, it looks like some people have questions about that. If you submitted it, that's great. That's all you have to do right now. Give us about a week for the LAs to grade and give you feedback. So we will let you know when the feedback is ready. So it takes some time for the LAs to grade your work too. So yeah. Okay, great, everybody. Hope you had a good session. Just want to remind you that assignment 1, if you're still working on it, you can please do submit it as soon as possible. And then and if you're done with assignment 1, you can work on the lab number 4, which will help you practice more with forms. Okay. And then on Thursday, we're going to continue forms, and then you're going to get your assignment 2, which is more forms. So, yeah, awesome. Okay. Hello back, everyone. All right, then. Have a great rest of your evening, everybody. I'll see you all on Thursday. Bye.